Hi there. Well, I don't know what I'm doing, and this time I have proof. I have opened up a new text file just in case this turns out to be a new journal, and I have one from the last week or so that is open and ready should I wind up reading that. First, though, I wanted to talk about 1212. This being 1213, it's a pretty good time to talk about it. Did you feel anything? Hmm? Did you notice anything? Well, I didn't get anything like the energy wallop that I found on 1028 and on 1111. So I suspect that there was a shift of some kind, a change, but more like something of a clicking in instead of this big wave of energy to help adjust and raise our frequency. I'm guessing here. I don't have all my DNA strands turned on. I don't have all the open chakras and, the total connection with that. So, like most of us, I'm a fish swimming around down here saying, "Where's the water? Where's the water? I've heard of this stuff. It's called water. Somebody help me. I need to find the water." Yeah. Well, aren't we kind of like that in a way? I mean, we're swimming in our own divinity and we fail to recognize it. Oh my goodness, are we ever going to have laughing parties once we get through this shift? Someone I'm very close to is Papaji, Harilal Punjaji. I don't know. Anyway, everybody calls him Papaji. I guess it's easier to say, huh? And he is known for laughter, crazy kind of laughter, like out of nowhere. And he never needed any kind of drugs. There are some kind of things you can take that make everything seem funny. I remember my teenage years. And it's funny because I forget what it was now. I think maybe it was mescaline, but I experimented with those kind of things. Um, I'm glad I didn't get into it too deeply, and I sure don't need it anymore. I am totally going for getting high on what is. I believe that, well, think about it or don't think about it, ponder it in your heart. You can't see something that isn't there. Now, maybe it's not there in 3D, but if you're seeing it, honey, it's there. And I remember those hallucinations. I remember looking at the sidewalk and the pavement and stooping down to touch it because it looked like it was water flowing, bubbling just under the surface there. That mystified me, what that was. And I remember too, I might have shared this before, how any of you that have taken any kind of a hallucinogen know about the pretty images and flowing matrices and pictures on the walls that you would see. And I spent my time staring at walls too until one day it hit me. No, wait a minute. Is that on the wall or is that just a matter of perspective? And I readjusted my vision and I realized, oh my God, it's in the air. I just see it on the wall, but it's not there. It's like a flower has color, but you don't know it absent the sun. If the sun isn't shining on it, you'll never know there's a colored flower there. And so, I don't know, it's not exactly like that. But anyway, guess I'm rambling a bit. Okay, the energy adjustment from yesterday. Um, my body is more sensitive than many because of its various ailments. And so it's kind of easy to wipe it out. Well, I'm not wiped out. So, I mean, I kind of like that. So much for whatever it was that I felt from 1212. I'll be interested to hear you guys' experience. And I mean, I know it's only a few hours ago that 1212 completed itself. And like with the 1111 thing, it took me a full solid 2 weeks before I was really beginning to be able to even just sit up all day, all day without having to rest and stuff. So anyhow, enough of that. Now, where am I going? Something I did yesterday. There's somebody I haven't mentioned to you guys yet. She lives in Hawaii, and her name is Mirabai, or they call her Mirabai Devi. And I'll give you a link with the transcript. She held a meditation for peace and unity consciousness for the world. And I figured that, hey, that's the perfect thing to be doing on this 12/12 gateway date or not, And so I joined her. It's the first time I've done that, but it turns out she has these meditations monthly, and they're free. There's no charge, and people join from around the world. It's a call-in thing. I don't know that there's anything available for a link up on the web. I don't know. But she gives you a phone number and a key code to put in. And it was very powerful, truly powerful. Above everything else, the Illuminati, the powers that were, have done their level best to isolate and separate us out, to pit brother against brother, to foment war and sadness and all of that stuff, okay? Well, whatever this new age oncoming is, it's about unity. I mean, that's a very big part of it. We've actually been united all along, but because we were convinced that we weren't, because we believed the lie of separation, we weren't aware of it. Strange how that works, huh? See what great creators we are? We can even isolate ourselves from that which is, just based on belief. Well, let's get rid of all beliefs in being separate so we can fully enjoy and get into our abilities that have been lying dormant there, like telepathy, ESP, all that kind of stuff. It's all just part of being one. We really are united. There's not one atom anywhere that is not entangled. It's all one. It's a fractal. And so everything we think, do, and say has an effect on our brethren. And you know what? Not just the ones walking around here on the earth either. The whole thing. All of the dimensions, all of the densities, all of it. It's all united. It's all one. So our star brothers and sisters get to feel our energies as well. Well, you know what? That kind of stuff works both ways now, doesn't it? So just contemplate that. All of those high and holy beings existing wherever, and they're focused wherever their existence is, on what level or density, they're radiating out their cosmic consciousness, their awareness. Well, honey, we can tune into that, give me that. Let's get rid of channel 4 and let's go to Buddha TV, Inner Vision, the real YouTube, the one we find inside. All we have to do, I really believe this, folks, I'm not kidding. All we have to do is get rid of all those old, outworn beliefs. And maybe it's a good idea to tackle the ones that are against unity, the ones that cloud our vision. Let's get out the squeegee and cleanse the vision a bit. I don't know. You pick what's near and dear to your heart, okay? I'm just saying. We get to choose what we tune into, and it's all being radiated. Now, you talk about an infinite bunch of frequencies and programs and channels and things. Well, that's what that is. Now, admittedly, we have to rise in frequency in order to be able to tune into some of this, but we have heart. And our heart crosses all boundaries. Nothing is, there's no limitation in heart. So we can touch things. We can tap into things in heart. We might not be able to fully decode such transmissions until we do attain that frequency, but we can still feel into them. In heart, we're one with all that is, and that means there's not an atom anywhere that escapes us. I mean, do you know that in the tiniest cell in your body, it contains you? It contains the cosmos. Everything is contained in everything else. It's fractal. So you're contained in every atom everywhere. There's not one where you're not. Sure, it boggles the mind. Ain't that fun? I love a pretzeled mind. You know, I don't eat too many pretzels, but I love making mind into that shape. Whatever way we can twist it up and get it, meditating on its navel, that's good. Then we can go off swimming and fishing around into stuff that would freak mind out, but it's too preoccupied, and so it's not paying us attention, so we can have some fun without interference. Okay, this seems like a really good time to read you this journal, which just happens to be titled Looking Back on the Old Perspective Back at Mind. Now, I wrote it the 9th, 12/9. I haven't looked up that Mayan day yet, so I don't know what it is, and I don't know what I said, but here we go. All right, I journaled today, mostly to find out what'll come through, what is in there, for I really don't know who and what I am. Today, I feel that especially. It's not that I feel empty, but it has the flavor of that. What is mankind? Why are we here? What are we about doing? Or what are others about doing through us? Do we want to let things continue on as they are? Or do we make some other choice? Until we can come to know the self, all the other questions are just distractions. Don't you see how all the answers would change should our self-definition change? It's like weeding the inner garden of beliefs, pulling up the belief weeds, the ones that don't produce good fruit. Often, when we pull up a big one, any number of other ones come up as well. Their roots were entangled. Each time we do this, dispose of an outgrown belief, the self changes. It doesn't feel the same anymore to be who we are. Sometimes the change is huge. We may even feel lost for a while, as if a big chunk of who we are is gone. Well, that's how it feels, perhaps, but not how it is. That big chunk that's now gone was no part of the real self. It never was. Yet it blended in with the rest of the part we were playing, so that we took it to be a part of us all that time, maybe for lifetimes. How strange now that we find it wasn't really anything, nothing at all. As we look back, we can see how it was taking it for real that made it seem so for a time. Well, it makes us wonder, what else do we take for real that is not? This is the danger of living from or believing in mind. It does its best, the mind does, but its best doesn't hold a candle, we find, to the heart. Mind functions best from the lap of the heart. That's how Muji puts it, and that's what I found too. So, we watch a number of our old beliefs fall this way while we're weeding the inner garden. We marvel at how consciousness changes when those weeds aren't there anymore. We marvel at the power of something false something not even real, to alter the self. Well, to alter the experience, for there's no altering the true self. We've been on the periphery of our being for some times now, quite a while. Mankind has been mostly locked out of experiencing his true nature, the fullness of self, capital S. We've been riding along on a certain momentum of acceptance of things the way they are, or rather the way they seem to be, for the reality of the absolute has been there with us all the time. It's all so very strange, for that ultimate reality has been as close as our breath all this while. So why didn't we see it? Why didn't we sense it? Well, a few of us have, of course. Down through the long ages, saints and sages have appeared and disappeared, and they told us the truth, for which we usually stoned or hung them. Interesting story that, how very strange. The momentum of acceptance, of allowing things to go on as they have done. That's what we're rejecting now. Gee, do you think it might have something to do with waking up? Pretty funny that, but I think it does. It distresses me a bit to hear the predictions of how many will or will not make it into higher consciousness, into ascension. In the mid-90s, Alex Collier said in his lecture at the ranch, J.Z. Knight's place, that as much as 2/3 wouldn't make it. That's how it looked at that time. Now, I'd like to suggest that when we hear numbers like this, we don't choose to believe them. Don't accept them. Believe it or not, I actually have some good reasoning behind this, so here goes. There are some who can look into the future. Advanced races can do this, and there are some of them, and other sorts, incarnate among us who can look out ahead. And Elia Benz is one of those others, since she's not from an advanced race, nor even our own. The way she explains it, though, makes perfect sense to me. It really clicks. She says that, sure, she can look into the future, but it won't necessarily happen like that. Why not? Because the future she sees is just how things will turn out to be if things go on as they are now. We change or can change that future with each decision we make. Do you see? Thus, what the Andromedans saw as the likely future numbers for ascension, or, well, upliftment as they call it, it's not necessarily true for us now. That was almost 20 years ago, and things have mightily changed. Do you see? Maybe this is at least partly why so many old predictions for the new century did not turn out to be so. You remember all that cataclysm and everything that was predicted for the year 2000? Think back a bit. Well, it's kind of like that now, isn't it? Only now the magic date is 2012. So, things are changing. We're in that mix of what is changing all around us. What difference do we make? Do we choose to make a difference? Do we choose to change the way things have been going? I think most of us do. That's probably a large part of why they are changing. We don't realize how much of it is us, how much of a difference we really make. I call us into deeper awareness of that. We do make a difference. Every minute things are changing because we are here. Enter heart if this sounds too crazy, since to mind it's just nuts. Go deep into the now moment for this. Drop all of the past. If we stay in the past, it will just drag us down into repetitious cycling, recycling. There's no need for that. Let's let go of our belief history, our belief that history can only repeat itself, that that's what it does, and that that is natural, even right. Just because something has been the case for a long stretch of time does not make it the rule of forever. Now, does it? What a limited way to believe and to live that is. I say no thanks. I choose the full freedom available. It's symbolized by the phrase, anything is possible. Now, that's got nothing to do with repeating history. Anything is possible. If you let that one sink in, if you choose it as one of your new self-chosen beliefs, it will wash up and out all the old rotten stuff that lurks in the subconscious awareness. You'll get a look at those old beliefs as the new one settles down. As you ponder it, it'll settle down right into each and every cell. It'll flush that other stuff up and out. So very much of what we're made of, so much of our individual garden of beliefs was not planted by us. It was made part of our programming. Now, we received the bulk of those weed seeds when we were little. They've grown into quite a crop. Folks didn't bother to tell us that our whole life would go along the lines of this inner garden. They didn't tell us that this is the ground of our creation. What we sow here, we reap. Heck, they didn't even tell us that we could create, much less how we do that. Well, we all know by this time that it has to do with our consciousness. Yet our science doesn't even accept the existence. It still fights the whole idea of consciousness. So we can certainly be forgiven for not having put this together before now. Now, it's no big deal, really. It's just a part of the past we are choosing our independence from. As we continually withdraw back into the now and occupy only the PM, the present moment, things are empowered to change. That's their nature. What we weren't taught or programmed with as far as beliefs, we're finding inside anyway. It turns out that somehow, in some magical, mystical way, we contain the truth. Capital T. It may even be that we are that. Hey, who knows, right? Let's not condemn anything out of hand. We don't know yet the possibles of this very moment. What I call us to is recognition that we are creators in that. By occupying only this very moment, we tap right into the power of creation. Now remember, stay in heart. Don't ask me for the why and how of things. I typically only know the what, and so that's what I share. I don't hold things back here. You are my other self, and I want you to have the whole thing. We're coming into an age of unity now. Maybe it starts by recognizing that it is in our best interest to help our brethren, and that actually is helping the self. Are you feeling empowered yet? If not, then have a look at what part of you is not feeling that, huh? May I make a suggestion? I think you will find it's the mind. The mind is the one who runs around in fear that the sky is falling. that some kind of Armageddon or another is just ahead. That is purely the mind. Why do I say that? Well, be in heart and take a look at it. Who or what is losing the bulk of its power over you now? In this garden weeding process, who or what part of you is most affected? Mind thought it had all things arranged so very nicely in that garden. That is mind's territory, the garden of beliefs. We could even say that is the mind, couldn't we? What else is built on beliefs? Mind can only live in the past. If we look into the contents of mind, it is full of what has been, what has happened, what you once learned, right? Well, that's all from the past. If you try to pin mind down to the now moment, you won't be successful for more than a few brief moments. Mind fears being cut off from the bulk of itself, all of its beliefs. It takes its identity from that. Any one of you who meditates, you know what I mean. Any of you who have been unsuccessful with meditation, perhaps it's because you tried to meditate with the mind. Mind isn't suited for that. If you try it again, but go into heart this time or into the now moment, I bet you will be successful. Well, chances are anyway. It's a deeper part of the being that meditates, not the mind. Do you find this stuff scary at all? I hope not. But it's been so long since I left off occupying my inner garden of beliefs, my mind, that I've rather lost touch with what that is like. We've absolutely all been there, though. Well, wait, I suppose those few, like Anelia and such, may be the exceptions. You know, those words always and never are just not suitable for use in 3D. 2 more words dumped from the lexicon. Well, at least as relates to 3D. Now, where was I? Well, I'll make the suggestion here that any fear can also be traced back to the mind. Mind has been in total control for so very long, not just in our own lifetime, for at least several thousands of years. That's my guess. Whatever dark forces got control of things in the long ago, that's the way they've designed things to be. Does that thought scare you? That there may be dark forces in control of the world? Well, if it does, and if you can find your way into heart to take a look at it, you will find once again that it's mind that's afraid. It's not really you. How can I say this? As I look at it, I find it's mind that has the nature that wants to be in control. It's been in control of us for so long, hasn't it? Well, it doesn't want to lose that control. It doesn't like being bossed around. It sees itself as the boss, the only one. That's how it wants it anyway. Do you see that? Mind is domineering. It wants to always be right. Kind of a masculine thing, huh? Well, that applies both to the powers that were and to the internal mind, just the same. Always being right, always in control. Take a look from heart at your life. Do you see how mind has been running things? I found that it was only when I could back away, when I would disidentify from the mind, that I stepped out of the fear. The fear began to seem very distant. As I looked around for why that would be so, this is what I found. I found the fear in the mind. And I found that I am not the mind. Those two things brought me such comfort, I can hardly get it into words. It is so empowering. Just this change in perspective. That's what it is, you know. You don't get rid of the mind. You don't leave it or anything. You just take a different perspective. You look out at it instead of out from it. And the whole landscape radically changes. Things are never the same again. It's a form of liberation, just really realizing that. Hey, I have a mind, but I am not that mind. This is to change the angle, the perspective, the vision. That's all it is. Yet it's so very powerful. I have found the mind to be the source, the repository of perhaps, are you ready for this? Perhaps all of my problems. So much so that I don't even use the word problem anymore when referring to me. There's no need for it. I have no more problems. Well, there are issues, sure, but they're not problems. They're opportunities. Only that. This too is the fruit of the angle of vision being changed. What makes it so powerful may be that it's working on the definition, if you will, of the self. Who am I? What am I? There is no more powerful question that I'm aware of, anyhow. This also gives illustration of how all meaning changes and shifts in the life when the self perspective is changed. It makes all the answers gotten before suddenly out of date. Do you see? As I change my idea, my concept around who I am to the new me, the new self that arises, all the answers gotten by the old one are suddenly passé. They don't count. I look at them, sure, but not necessarily with acceptance. I can think for myself, my new self. Now, what that shows me, and I hope many can see it, is that going out after answers to anything else but this one central question is largely a waste. Can you see why? For as soon as you shift your conception of who and what you are, all those answers you worked so hard for will fade into irrelevance, into a limbo of nothingness. All will have to be reconsidered by the new I that I am now. Now, this makes it clear to me why this one question, the who or what am I, is the only one that counts at this point. Until this one is fully and satisfactorily answered, the other ones are a bit of a waste of time. Now, sure, they may be entertaining. There's nothing wrong with playing around with those other questions. The thing is not to place much importance on any answers we come up with to them. As long as we hold those new beliefs lightly, we should be fine. What got us into so much trouble in the first place was belief. We actually believed the darn things. I mean, can you imagine? This backing away from taking the mind to be us is the real entrance into peace. For me, it was maybe the first taste of it. It took a while to discover what was at the heart of the difference I had begun to notice in the self. After a while of walking around like that, it suddenly struck. I was peaceful. Nothing much seemed to disturb me now. That's what was so different. So naturally, I highly recommend it to one and all. Step out of identifying self with the mind. You are not just that. You are so very much more. The simple stepping out of mind into heart is the major change that will really accelerate you on your path? Well, I gotta say maybe to that, since some of you are no doubt well beyond that earlier step. When the day comes that you look around you and finally realize that you're walking always in peace, then you'll know that you stepped away from mind's dominance. And this alone is a jewel, a joyous state. How funny it is, my friends, to discover that all problems are mind-based. It's really mind-blowing, literally. In some ways, perspective is everything. Try it out. Let's have some flexible perspective and pass it around. Maybe it'll help out your mates. Now, I say that very cautiously, for surely you know by now that the only one you're here to save is yourself. Let's let the others be in charge of themselves as well. And that's how we all want it. Let each one claim responsibility only for self. So what I mean, or what I meant above, was that as you shine your new peaceful radiance all around, it will get people's attention. And they may inquire. They may be ready to take such a step themselves. But, and this is important, until they inquire, leave it be. Heart will speak up for you when needs be. Don't let mind take this bit in its mouth and run with it. Remember, mind only screws up such things. Stick to heart.